Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Breaking news today, really good news for some, $8.5 billion. That's how much TC Energy just announced that it is investing in the energy sector. In fact, they said that they were betting big on the energy sector. Bad news is that's in the United States. $8.5 billion from a Canadian company invested in the United States instead of investing that here in Canada. That's $8.5 billion that will put people to work, pay royalties to state governments, create thousands of jobs in spin-offs, and of course provide Americans with safe and secure energy sources. I remember when TC Energy was called TransCanada Energy, and after 10 years of Liberal policies absolutely devastating the energy sector here in Canada, they decided to take that word Canada out of its name, and now they're just known by TC Energy. So the Commonwealth of Virginia will see a major pipeline built by Canadian companies. That could have happened here, but it is not. Now, before I go on, Mr. Speaker, I should just mention that I am sharing my time with the Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent, Akia Wenrack. Let's be very clear about why that investment is not coming to Canada. Because there is a production cap. The Liberals like to call it an emissions cap. It is, in fact, a production cap. And if you take away one thing from today's debate, Mr. Speaker, it should be this. If you say yes to that cap, you are saying no to a new pipeline. It is as simple as that. Right. Now let's think back to the election campaign when this Prime Minister was desperately trying to convince people that he was going to do things differently from the previous Liberal government, from the Trudeau government, of which the Prime Minister was a senior economic advisor. When he needed Canadians' votes, he was pretending to be in favor of energy sector developments. He said all kinds of things during the campaign. But as soon as the votes were tallied, this Prime Minister showed himself to be just another Liberal, because he's broken those promises and broken all those commitments. He's got a long history of opposing energy developments. He cheered on and congratulated the previous Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, when Justin Trudeau vetoed the Northern Gateway project. The Northern Gateway project would have taken Western Canadian energy to a deep water port in northern British Columbia, opening up billions of dollars of market access in Asian countries, growing countries with increasing demand for oil and gas, India, Japan, Korea. All of that was killed when Justin Trudeau vetoed the Northern Gateway, and this Prime Minister cheered him on. It is completely impossible to build another pipeline as long as this cap stays in place. If this cap stays, no new pipelines will ever be built. It's increasingly clear that this Prime Minister has performed a complete bait and switch, saying something during the election, changing the rhetoric of the Liberal Party, but delivering the exact same policies as the previous Trudeau government. TC isn't the only company building in the United States, Mr. Speaker. Enbridge is as well. Enbridge is building 2 pipelines in the U.S. And again, these are Canadian companies with strong, proud histories of getting things built in Canada that have to go offshore into the United States to get new projects built. What does that mean for Canadians? Well, it doesn't just mean lost jobs. Remember, oil and gas production in Western Canada fuels the entire country's economy. And it's not just Canada, I should point out. I know we have colleagues that will be speaking to this motion from Atlantic Canada too, where their hopes for economic growth are underpinned by the ability to develop their abundant natural resources. The world is consuming more and more oil and gas. Pipelines are being built in other countries. In fact, it's ironic to note, and Canadians should never forget, that while this Prime Minister was cheering on Justin Trudeau, advising him to cancel Canadian energy projects, his company, Brookfield, was investing in other countries to build pipelines in other countries, to develop other countries' natural resources. Of course, that was fine for his shareholders, and those projects would have been even more economically viable in other countries if Canada is not producing its own natural resources. You see, if Canada develops its own natural resources and we build pipelines here in Canada, well then Brookfield's investments in pipelines in other countries will be worth less because they'll face increased competition. That's something Canadians should never forget about this conflicted Prime Minister. It's not just the direct jobs that oil and gas production create, Mr. Speaker. Every road you drive on that's paved, every hospital you might have to visit or your loved one, every school that a child goes to is in some way, shape, or form funded by natural resource development. When companies invest, they create jobs along the production site. Those workers support local economies. The royalties gathered by the provincial governments and federal governments pay for important social services. And maybe it's policies like the production cap are the reason why over $50 billion of foreign investment have fled the Canadian economy, right at a time when we need to be firing on all cylinders. To respond to the unfair U.S. tariffs, we need more and more money flowing into the Canadian economy to develop our natural resources, to bolster our GDP, to put Canadians back to work when their jobs are disrupted by trade disputes. But instead, this government is continuing the attack on the oil and gas sector, continuing the attack on the natural resource sector. Now, let's be clear about a few things. Not only will this emissions cap keep those investment dollars out of our economy, but it will also mean that Canada continues to sell at a discount to the United States. You may have seen it, Mr. Speaker, on CBC when the Polish ambassador was explaining where Poland's getting its LNG from. That's right. The host said, well, you're buying your LNG from the United States, and the ambassador actually had to stifle a laugh. He started to chuckle because he said, well, not all that LNG that we're buying from the US is American. Some of it's Canadian. Of course, they buy it from Canada at a deep discount and then sell it to us at a big profit. We are literally subsidizing the American economy by this Liberal government's policies. So Conservatives have a better idea, Mr. Speaker. Instead of pipelines being built in countries that have terrible human rights records, instead of royalties being paid to governments that do not share our values, instead of people being put to work in other countries, let's bring those dollars home. Let's bring those investment dollars here to Canada so that Canada can provide the world with clean and ethical and a safe and reliable source of energy. Let's put those steel workers in Regina back to work, building the pipelines. Let's put the engineers back to work. Let's put the blue-collar workers who tap a well and see it all the way through to completion. Let's support our hospitals, our schools, our roads with the royalties paid by these companies. Greenhouse gas emissions do not need a passport to travel around the world. If that production is going to increase, Conservatives believe that we should see it increase here at home because we know that we can extract our natural resources, the highest environmental standards, the lowest emissions intensities, and Canadians see the benefit of that. So to conclude, Mr. Speaker, Liberals have a choice. They can vote in favor of our motion and lift the emissions cap, lift that production cap. Or they can say today that they oppose new pipelines, that there will never be a pipeline built under this Liberal government. They could at least be honest with Canadians, honest with provincial premiers who are desperately clinging to hope that this government might reverse the Trudeau policies. If they vote in favor of this motion today, they are effectively saying that there will be no new pipelines in Canada under this Liberal government. And their list that they came forward with C5, let's be clear, giving the power to selectively enforce Canadian laws when it comes to new energy production, new energy projects, will not matter as long as that production cap is in place. As long as that emissions cap is in place, it doesn't matter what they do with the powers they've given themselves under C5, because nothing will be able to flow through any kind of project that they might support. So the key to energy independence and abundance, the key to getting off of the US market and diversifying our customers in natural resources is to lift the emissions cap. Liberals have a choice. We call on them to support the energy workers in this country and pull their emissions cap, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. Question et commentaire. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on a point of order today on Friday in question period.
Order on a point of order.
On Friday, I had misspoken during question period while answering a question. I said that emissions are 41% lower than they have been in the past when I intended to say that they are 41% lower than they would have been under a Conservative plan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe the Prime Minister has actually been very clear to Canadians and members opposite in terms of how it is that Canada is going to continue to build a strong economic economy. And at the end of the day, that factors in energy. I'd like to contrast even just the beginning of what the current Prime Minister had compared to Stephen Harper. When the member was sitting in the Speaker's chair during that period, it's important that Canadians realize that under Stephen Harper and the Conservative government, they didn't even build an inch of pipeline that led to the tidewaters.
Wow.
That is the reality.
Wow.
The member opposite might say that that's not true. Then give us the pipeline that went directly from Alberta to either BC, Churchill, or Atlantic Canada.
Good question.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, I know we don't debate points of order, but I think it's so telling that the first moment of this debate kicks off with the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change admitting that what he said on Friday was not true, that emissions aren't going down under this Liberal government's plan, that they're in fact going up. And he has to make up some kind of hypothetical qualifier to get away from accusations of deliberately misleading the House. Mr. Speaker, 4 major pipeline projects, including access to tidewater, were built under the previous Conservative government. This Liberal government inherited a proposal list with 18 LNG facilities that they have completely blocked or sat on. This Liberal government cancelled Northern Gateway and cancelled Energy East, which would have taken Western Canadian oil to displace foreign oil imported from other countries. It is clear if Canadians are hoping to develop the natural resource sector, it won't be with a Liberal government.
Question et commentaire. L'Honourable Député.
The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Temiskaming. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question for the member is simple. Do they have any scruples among the Conservatives? The same week when the Climate Institute said that we won't reach the greenhouse gas targets for 2030, the same day the Conservatives bring a motion that would create even more greenhouse gas emissions. So we can only draw a parallel with what we experienced in the spring. Is this the new leadership? How did the Conservatives understand the message from Canadians when they supported time limitation on C5? What is their role as His Majesty's loyal opposition if they support C5, but at the same time they bring a motion to produce even more greenhouse gas emissions? Where are their scruples? Where are the Conservatives heading with this? The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's be very clear. Canada can help lower global emissions by developing our own natural resources. The two go hand in hand. After 10 years of a Liberal government vetoing natural resource projects and chasing away foreign investment, those investment dollars have just gone to other countries that don't have anywhere near the same environmental standards as we have here in Canada. Just take LNG alone. By exporting more LNG, we can help other countries get off of coal-fired electrical generation. That's what the Conservative plan is all about with technology, not taxes. We can help lower global emissions while developing more of Canada's natural resources.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During this past election, every door I knocked on, 1 out of every 3 doors, the question was, Mr. Gill, how is your party going to facilitate diversification of the economy? Our economy is totally dependent on auto sector jobs. The Honourable Opposition House Leader attended my riding a couple of weeks ago, and he had the opportunity to attend a company called Southwest Manufacturing. This was a tool and die business that has diversified into oil and gas and nuclear. I would like the Opposition House Leader to enlighten the rest of the House as to what his discussions were and what he heard from the folks at Southwest Manufacturing. Thank you.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader, about 40 seconds.
Well, a great question. It was a fantastic meeting that we had, and we heard loud and clear that as long as there aren't new major pipelines built in Canada, as long as there aren't new major energy projects, then those companies will have to continue looking to the U.S. to sell their products or to make their products. And as long as those tariffs are in place, Canada is even more vulnerable to this situation. When I tour energy facilities all over Western Canada, you can see parts and component pieces, heavy equipment, vehicles, all manufactured in Ontario. So the link between manufacturing jobs in southwestern Ontario and development in Western Canada or in Atlantic Canada is obvious to everyone who's not a Liberal.